Hello everyone. We have seen multiple times the news that Indian fishermen have been arrested in Sri Lanka. They have been detained by the Sri Lankan Navy. Sometimes there were also extreme news some 3-4 years back that the Sri Lankan Navy has tortured and killed some fishermen from Tamil Nadu. Some of them have been shot at, and this has always remained a controversial subject matter. So let's try to understand what are the underlying reasons for the arrest of Indian fishermen by the Sri Lankan Navy and why their ships are being in fact taken over by the Sri Lankan government, why hefty penalties are being imposed on Indian fishermen. And along with the hefty penalties, we have seen that in the year 2024, the number of Indian fishermen who have been arrested are 528. So which is a very high number, and this year we are just in February and the number of arrests which have been made of Indian fishermen has already crossed the 100 mark, and nearly 119 Indian fishermen are in detention in Sri Lanka. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister has rightly shooted a letter to the Central Foreign Minister and a Foreign and External Affairs Minister 𝐾𝐨𝐰𝐧𝐥𝐸𝐵 in order to resolve the problem of the Tamil Nadu fishermen, as the Sri Lankan government is auctioning off their trawlers or their boats and not returning them to the fishermen, causing huge economic loss for the fishermen. If you look at the India-Sri Lankan maritime boundary, so I'll just display a map for you. India and Sri Lankan coastlines, they are very nearby to each other, and they pass through a region which is called as the Gulf of Mannar and Park Strait. Gulf of Mannar and Park Strait are the two regions through which the through which the boundary between India and Sri Lanka passes by. If you look at this, they are very close to each other, and the Tamil Nadu fishermen historically have always had their rights of fishing in the joint waters of India and Sri Lanka, primarily because in ocean there cannot be a possible boundary line between the countries. The Indian Tamil Nadu fishermen have historically in fact fished in all these waters. Then apart from fishing in these waters, one more important thing that we need to understand is, if you look at the southernmost point of India, that is Rameshwaram, the island which forms part of Sri Lanka, that is 𝐾𝐶𝐸𝐽, it forms nearly it is just 10 miles away from the Rameshwaram coastline. So these are creating some essentially diplomatic, livelihood, ecological issues. Let's try to understand what they are. So if you look at it, in the year 1974-76, the India-Sri Lankan maritime boundary has been established, which is called as International Maritime Boundary Line. And as part of the maritime boundary line, India gave away the 𝐾𝐶𝐸𝐽 Island to Sri Lanka. This has been done without consultation of the Indian Tamil Nadu. Then apart from giving away the 𝐾𝐶𝐸𝐽 Island, despite the island being given away to Sri Lanka, the Sri Lankan government has claimed that the Indian fishermen will have the rights of resting, drying of nets, and over and above that, they also have the right to celebrate a festival called St. Anthony's Festival in the 𝐾𝐶𝐸𝐽 Island. But they did not extend any fishing right to Indian fishermen. And once the IMBL has been demarcated, the Indian fishermen mainly confined themselves to the Indian waters, with Sri Lankan fishermen exploiting these waters, sir. But all of these things have changed in the 1980s and 90s because of the Sri Lankan civil war between LTTE and the Sri Lankan government. Because of the civil war, the Sri Lankan government lost control over the northern territories, and it stopped sending its navy to the maritime boundary between India and Sri Lanka. At this point of time, many Indian Tamil Nadu fishermen, they immensely profited by smuggling weapons and guns to LTTE. This was done, and this has led to a lot of enmity or anger on the Sri Lankan side. And because of this anger, once the civil war ended in the year 2010, from then on, the Sri Lankan Navy started very harsh patrolling of the international maritime boundary line. Then over and above that, the Indian fishermen, what they started doing is, they started conducting a fishing activity which is called as bottom trawling. I'll just show you the image of how the bottom trawling is actually done. This is an image of bottom trawling where the ship, in fact, is attached to a net, and the net is weighed down to the bottom with the help of some weights. And after the net is touching the ground, what the fishermen will do is they will drag the net, catching a lot of fish through this methodology. But this methodology of bottom trawling, it also causes huge destruction to the ecology of the Gulf of Mannar and Park Bay Strait. These are the essential problems which the Indian fishermen are these are the things which our Indian fishermen are doing, and this is leading to ecological damage. Then apart from that, because of increased population, because of high pressure on the fishing areas, the Indian fishermen, what they started doing is they started crossing over to the Sri Lankan border, and they started conducting the bottom trawling, causing enormous ecological damage for Sri Lanka, because of which reason only the Sri Lankan Navy started arresting the Indian fishermen. But the problem is, for Indian fishermen, it is very difficult to identify where the Indian boundary ends and the Sri Lankan boundary begins. This is one essential problem, and along with that, sometimes the fishermen, because of extreme weather events, because of motor failure also, they sometimes accidentally drift away into the Sri Lankan water, and even then also the Sri Lankan Navy is arresting them and harassing them. Then along with that, the third issue here is, it is essentially an issue of livelihood of Indian fishermen, which is not being respected properly. Then over and above that, one more important challenge that we need to understand here is, because of the historical rights of fishing, the Indian fishermen keep crossing the boundary. And the solution for this complicated problem is not merely arresting and detaining people. There is a need for a joint working mechanism between both India and Sri Lanka, which will in fact sort out some of the issues. And if the issues are not resolved at the bilateral level, there is every need for us to go for a permanent court of arbitration, which will be a neutral arbitrator between India and Sri Lanka, in order to demarcate the fishing rights of people. Then over and above the permanent court of arbitration, the Tamil Nadu government has taken a step wherein it is supplying deep sea fishing equipment to Indian fishermen free of cost, so that they will not resort to bottom trawling, but try to explore the waters which are present in the far off deep sea region, so that the ecological damage will be minimized. Then over and above that, the Indian government is also, through its blue revolution phenomenon, is trying to develop inland fisheries within Tamil Nadu, so that the fishermen need not have or do not have the necessity to explore the sea waters. Internal waters we are trying to explore. We are trying to explore deep sea fishing. All of these steps in together, they should provide a solution to the fishermen issue, and unnecessarily harassing the poor fishermen is not going to provide any permanent solution for Sri Lanka. Thank you.